use gender-neutral pronouns. And, well, let's see. We're here today close to equinox, right? We just went through equinox. And so this is the time of year where the sun and moon rise due east and set due west. And the solar cycle is balanced. We're in balance, right? So the 24-hour cycle of the dance between our planet and the sun is in a different place than it is coming and going. So that's part of where we are today. And as has been mentioned, let's remember that tonight at sundown, tonight's new moon is Erev Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the Jewish High Holy Days, which also marks the Jewish New Year. As has been said, it's a time of deep reflection, and the 10 days between now and Yom Kippur is traditionally a time to consider where one might have fallen short in the previous year and to make amends where possible in preparation for Yom Kippur itself. And Tuvia has told me that he has a song for this evening. He's also a cantor at his congregation. So Tuvia, please.
May the long words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable for peace to all, with hope filled with light, blessed be. Blessed be.
Thank you so much. This year, may our lives be a blessing to the world. It's also, as if that wasn't enough, the Hindu calendar is also lunar. And so tomorrow's the first day of Shaharda Navratri, which is one of the most revered of Hindu festivals. It's the annual autumnal 9-day festival celebrating the goddess Durga, mother of the universe. So many things to celebrate. And I have to say, it's such a pleasure to be here. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is a beautiful place to be. And I'd like to start with this poem by Reverend Manish Mizra Marzetti. It's in this book called Voices from the Margins. Some of you might know it by Jackie James and Mark Morrison Reed. And it's called River Call. Okay? Between rocking the boat and sitting down, between stirring things up and peaceably going along, we find ourselves here in community, each called for many different journeys, many different life paths onto this river road. Some are here because the rocking of the boat has been too much tumult, too much uncertainty, too much pain. Some are here with questions about where the boat is going and how best to steer it, where this journey ends. Others are here as lovers of the journey, lovers of life itself. Here in front, beside, behind, each a passenger, each a captain, doing the best we can. Rest here in your boat with me, the river calls. Listen to how I the sound of life coursing all around you. Let the current hold you. Let the current guide you. The river that gently flows through your soul whispers, "Come, let us worship." Before I continue on, I want to mention, it's already been mentioned that I'm an Interfaith Earth Chaplain in candidacy for dual ordination into the UU ministry. I'm a come to UU, like so many of us, not a born to UU. I've been UU about 30 years. And there's a real difference, really, because born to UUs were raised with exactly our values. And in fact, our leadership in our national arena right now is composed of people who are generational UUs. Recently, I've also become a Sufi Muslim in the Chishti tradition. And my spiritual practice is earth-based. I currently work as a chaplain with one of the Benton County nonprofits serving unhoused and transitionally housed people. And I'm about to hopefully extend the service to unhoused queer youth in the Tri-County area because of the very high proportion of unhoused youth who are queer. So let us keep them in mind. So Reverend Mishra Marzetti invites us to come, let us worship, and that's religious language. I mean, what does it mean, really, to worship? I got curious, so I looked it up. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, the word worship was originally a noun, and it was from the original worthship, referring to a high-ranking person, such as a magistrate or a mayor. So we say your worthship or your worship, right? So the original, and about 300 years later, it was brought into religious dialogue, but that was later. It's important to note that the original sense of worthship carries deep within it the idea of separation, of hierarchy, of individuals or entities who are greater than, which necessarily requires the reciprocal, less than. So, as this found its way into a religious context, it began to refer to a sense of reverence paid to a supernatural or divine being. And, we recognize that the static noun has somehow put on dancing slippers and become a verb. A one-way flow of honor or respect, which might account for the discomfort that some of us feel with this language. Right? It lacks a certain amount of reciprocity, and yet we use it in Unitarian Universalism these days. We're sort of reclaiming some religious language and rethinking how that might go. But what do we mean as Unitarian Universalists when we come together in worship? I would offer that there's another sense, and of course now here I'm speculating and I'm just going to give you what I offer, but perhaps you'd be willing to bear with me for a moment. I propose that when we speak of worship, we have a sense of a process or an activity that we can only do in community, okay? Together, communally, because the whole, the community, is greater than the sum of its individual parts. So instead of being a hierarchy, it's more of a sphere, right? A holarchy. Okay, yeah, that's great. I like that. So in that sense, Come Let Us Worship becomes an invitation to consider together what exactly? Standard religious language would be the holy. Worship the holy. Well, that's interesting because the word holy is also from the Old English, and it connotes, perhaps not surprisingly, wholeness. So worshiping the holy becomes an invitation to consider together the wholeness of our communities. Now, there's a way in which, I don't need to tell you all this because you're already doing it, right? I mean, I see that. I've been here twice and I see that. But I'm going to hold forth for just another couple of minutes because I want to point out that what it means to belong to our communities is important to consider because, you know, there's false belonging and real belonging. And we've all experienced this in one way or another. False belonging is the kind of belonging that's contingent or conditional. We belong as long as we, you know, fill in the blanks. Well, as long as we look a certain way or behave a certain way or think a certain way, speak or sing in a particular way, but not perhaps if we are too loud or too quiet or too fast or too slow, too white, too brown, too black, too dressed up or dressed down, too pierced or coiffed or helpful or helpless or hapless or not enough, just not enough, not independent enough, not warm enough, not welcoming enough, not cheerful or grateful or good looking enough. Okay? Now, true community must be robust enough to hold all of this. I think yours is.
Yeah.
That's been my experience. I've only been here twice. I love you. So true community gets to and aspires to hold all the different kinds of pain. And there are so many different kinds. And all the different kinds of joy. And you can go on, all the different kinds of study and learning, all the different expressions of artistic contribution. It has a heart, such a community has a heart, a generosity large enough to not only allow but celebrate these differences and more. And that's what we're looking for, right? That's what so many of us are looking for, a place where we can be seen and known and accepted in all of our complexity. We all have longings. Take a moment now to consider yours. For what have you been longing? Take a moment. Okay, that was
You have that plan.
Well, so often our longings and our yearnings, they're formless, right? Which is why we need a timer. Because we yearn for something, and true community can hold all of who you really are, but only if you're willing to be your whole self, right out to the margins of your being, and maybe a little beyond that, just a little beyond your comfort zone, right? To bring your whole self. This is the gift that you bring to your community, the wholeness of yourself, your whole and holy self, your whole and holy longing. Now, can you be that longing? It's no small ask, really, to be yourself instead of trying to fit in. Fitting in is not belonging. To be yourself, to allow yourself to be seen, this is something I know firsthand. Feeling like so many people, something of an outlier. You know, I just returned from the Black Hills of South Dakota, where I was part of a 4-day gathering of people who were called together by an international indigenous initiative for transformative collaboration. And there were about 60 of us there, coming and going, more online. I don't exactly know how many, but it's sort of a post-Standing Rock thing, where there were so many nations. There were more than, somewhere between 300 and 400 nations, some of whom were traditional enemies on this land. And they came together, and there was a great deal of healing. And these folks have been meeting together since 1998. And they come there, it's hosted by, this year it was hosted by the Lakota people, but there were Dakota and there were Cree people, there was a Hawaiian person, somebody came from a Mayan background, there were Aztec and Pima and Paiute folk, and people like myself, settler colonialists, and the purpose of this, and also a Swiss couple who doesn't fall into any of those categories. And the purpose of this is to really see what we can do about making this transformative collaboration. And what was said over and over again, it's not what we think, it's how we think. Now, before I was a chaplain, I was an academic for like decades on end. And I have to say that I was both formed and informed and deformed by the academy, which, among other things, requires this hierarchical way of thinking. That's not where we need to go now. That's not where we need to go. But it's hard to say, who am I? I mean, people of the earth, they know who they are. But, you know, when we were considering our guidelines, it was like, well, respect, yes, generosity, yes, humility, yes, and then one of the Lakota women said, be yourself. And it's like, boy, you don't ask for much, do you? Be myself here, really? So it's hard, but that's the gift that we bring to our communities, the courage to be that vulnerable by bringing our wholeness, our holy selves, all of it, the pain, the betrayals, big and small, the dizzy joys, the heartache, whatever tenderness we can muster, whatever kindness. There are no guarantees. But to belong, we have to be willing to be our longing. And it helps, incidentally, to remember to breathe. Are you breathing? Are you noticing your breath? Mine is a little shallow right now because I'm a little nervous. I'm here talking to you, and I'm pretty sure you already know most of this stuff, but it never hurts to be reminded, right? It's a little risky, perhaps, this journey this morning, but that's what it is, to be part of the interdependent web. It's what it means to respect the interdependence of this web. Our seventh principle, bringing our whole self, not some edited version of ourselves designed to impress or please or pacify. Not that. Thankfully, the interdependent web of existence includes not just humans, but what some call all our relations. Seagulls and seaweed and starlight, the wind that drives the waves, the sands, the grasses, the shore pines shorn by those same winds, all of it. And sometimes that is a great relief, right? That's why we go out. This delicate intricacy of community. Again, in the words of Brene Brown, one should always footnote these things, right? True belonging does not require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. And is there judgment? Well, of course there's judgment. That's what we do. We're humans. And we may be the only ones that do. I'm pretty sure that seals don't judge, or the sea lions, or the sea horses. I'm pretty sure the sand doesn't judge, or Sitka spruce, the gulls, or the stars, but humans? Oh, humans, dear humans, yes, we do judge. No use trying to get around it. So how can we work with that in community? Well, it helps, as I mentioned, to breathe. Noticing our breath. Are we uncomfortable? Are you uncomfortable? Am I uncomfortable? Notice your breathing. Deepen it. Lengthen it. It helps. Also, a sense of humor. Laughing at ourselves. You know, in the words of one of my mentors, Reverend Lindy Ramsden, one of her Beatitudes is, "Blessed are they that can laugh at themselves, for we shall never cease to be amused." And there's a way in which all this mutual judging is just, well, it's just quaint. It's just what we do. Dogs sniff, cats yowl, humans judge. It's just a thing, you know. Don't take it personally, even though sometimes that's exactly how it's meant. Just let it go. Because it's hard enough to bring our whole selves into community without worrying about the judging. Just think of it as a kind of a nervous tick. You know, it's what we do. So come, let us worship together. Let us consider together the ways in which this community holds us, holds you, could hold you. You've done a tremendous thing here, right?
Right. Yes. Right.
Oh my goodness. Building together during the agonizingly long time out of time that's been COVID. Oh my goodness, this beautiful reimagining of your physical space. It's taken the village of Foof to make it so. And now it is so. And in making the building so, so has the building helped make you so. This beautiful, and because it's human, flawed, but nevertheless beloved community that truly welcomes those with a courage to belong, to be their longings, with all of our gifts and all of our vulnerabilities. May you be gentle and kind, and try your best to love and hold each other with care, that you may serve the common good of your community and beyond. May it be so. And now, I'd like to turn to meditation with music. Beautiful, thank you. What season are you in? Are you germinating? Are you listening? Taking in nourishment and incubating possibilities? Perhaps you're rooting. This season of rooting, reaching for new frameworks of meaning, or experimenting with freer ways of being. Perhaps in this season you are blooming, vibrantly alive, energized, and tapped into your Sometimes you're dormant, depleted, laid bare, exhausted, breaking down. But take heart, because